Welcome to the Forge for Growth podcast. Today I am with Sam Moore. How you doing, Sam?
Good, yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. It's Friday as we're recording, and I've got, after this, I've got an open day to maybe get things done. We'll see what happens. But,
I try to do like Fridays for admin days and block it off,
yeah,
but I always have like somebody try to schedule for Friday. It never ends up that way, so.
exactly. Well, cool, man. Sam is with the Marks Group and decided to have you on. We had a good conversation and yeah, excited, man. So tell me about you. Tell me what's kind of your history.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So I like to always say my career in tech kind of started back in probably 2018. I worked at J&M Diner, and that kind of sounds funny, but they were on Phantom Gourmet twice, Chronicle twice, 60 Minutes twice. Their original location was about 35 seats, and it burnt down because of an electrical fire in the salon next door. And so I started working in 2018, about a year and a half later, and I worked from dishwasher all the way up to line cook, head line cook. And the reason I say that's where a tech career started is because my manager, and I'll probably butcher it, but she said, your stupidest day on earth is going to be the day you think you know everything, because that's the last day that you'll ever learn something again. So essentially, you always got to keep an open mind, pretty much. Now,
I like that.
Fast forward, yeah, she was awesome. And it's J&M Diner. They're phenomenal. But about 4 or 5 years later, I had started a boot camp. It's called ServiceNow Apprenticeship. And they have a bunch of different things, digital marketing. I did the ServiceNow and ITSM boot camp. And originally, I was going to do the apprenticeship, but it was up in Tampa, which is about an hour and a half drive. That's without any traffic. And it was towards like the tail end of COVID. And so they're kind of like questioning whether they're going to go from remote back to in office. And we had just purchased a house, and I was just kind of starting off. And so with the salary that came with the apprenticeship, I had to drive 2 hours north every day each way. I was just like, no way it's happening. Yeah. So I started looking, and I ended up landing a job with a Amazon marketing agency startup. And so I was kind of like the tech guy that, kind of connected solutions to like actual business outcomes. And it was all started with kind of like low code automation with like Zapier and things like that. So, I mean, that's where it started, but we did have some like more in-depth, automations and things that interact with API, which is application program interface. And it's just pretty much any field in the software has a like back-end value that you can push or pull data from. That's like the easiest way to think of it. So that kind of like started off and just kicked off my career. From there, I worked at Liaison Home Automation. They're a integration company. They do like media servers. They do control systems, security systems, and a lot of their kind of clients are like larger, more like luxury residential, but they also did some commercial. And I just started as a kind of like integration specialist, and I kind of transitioned back into the whole IT side of things and implemented RMM, which is remote monitoring and management, MDM for their phones because they had company phones, which is mobile device management and full ticketing system, and kind of learn a lot of trial by fire there. Yeah. Just kind of started their first ever internal IT department, really. That's didn't cool. have anything structured. Yeah. And then I met Gene, and I started at the Marks Group. And here we do software implementation, kind of business consulting, general business consulting, and we kind of translate business processes and needs or goals into like either consolidated or like your ideal tech stack. And then I'm also doing Hypey, but AI. I'm kind of developing new services to kind of service what I like to call the messy middle, which is anywhere from like 1 million to 100 million in revenue clients. And I call them the messy middle because they have all the complexity of an enterprise operation, but they don't necessarily have the infrastructure. So
yeah. So with Marks Group, like you talk about systems and stuff that you do, but like, is there a focus on what you're helping with? So it's obviously like the software systems. Are we talking like CRMs? Are we talking about, full suites or,
Yeah, so we do a lot of things. We focus mostly on CRM. So it kind of all starts with that. And for example, we use Zoho CRM and Zoho internally, and that's where we do a lot of our business. And we start with CRM because kind of everything feeds back into that. It's like the start of your whole entire business from, sales to service implementation, product offering. So we primarily focus on CRM, but we do kind of build ERP systems, and we help people kind of consolidate their, sparse, spread out, scattered tech stack into a more coherent.
Gotcha.
Source of truth.
So I want to talk about this for a little, just mostly selfishly because I want to understand it. But the CRM, like, I know CRM is important. I'm a little stupid here, but like, do you have to have 500 customers and 10,000 prospects for CRM to be useful, or is it like, is there a number where it becomes useful, or how do you look at that?
I don't necessarily think so. And I think honestly, the sooner you get started, the better. And again, I mean, CRM professionals like $23 a month per employee. Only your salespeople need to use it. And if you're starting to use it and use best practices immediately, it's going to save you either endless hours of headache later or you just not doing it in the future and kind of being stagnant and stuck where you are there because it's too overwhelming to deal with it because you've already kind of scaled at that time.
Like, how does it actually save you time, though?
Yeah, it standardizes processes. You can set up automated notifications. So if somebody hasn't been touched or reached out to within X amount of business days, it'll make sure that stays front and center. It helps, there's out of the box reports. So as long as you're using the system as you should, you now have just out of the box reports that will tell you exactly where everything stands. I mean, there's many different ways to use it. And I think just getting started is the most important part because once you see that you have a bit more time, you can start kind of exploring some of those other options.
So would you say that most places you talk to, do they have a CRM in place, but it's just not used well, or are they mostly on spreadsheets still, or like how does that work?
So it's a mix. They're either on something like Goldmine, which is on premise, and it's not even really a CRM. It's kind of like an overglorified Rolodex, just a digital Rolodex pretty much.
Goldmine?
Goldmine, yeah. I'm not surprised you haven't heard of it before. We have a bunch of clients. That's kind of 20 years ago where they did a lot of their business here. But then you obviously have clients who, again, are working out of spreadsheets. Some have really good data governance and it's really clean data, so it's an easy process. It's just mostly getting everything in and then training, but it's a mixed bag, to be honest. And then also, there's a lot of people who have organized data, but they don't actually know all the processes that occur in their business front to back. And so you got to kind of iron those out, maybe create some flow charts and actually document those processes so you can translate them.
So when you talk about the business processes within the CRM, what do you mean by that? Is that just sales processes?
No, so I mean, could go from lead, which is your unqualified company in contact or person working at the company. A lot of times most CRMs that converts to an account and a contact, which would be your company and the people who work there. And then you have deals or opportunities, and those are your actual deal records that are holding information, finance information on qualified, potential. Now, once you go through the sales process, you have qualification. Everyone's sales process is different, even people in the same industry. And yeah, like there's processes, but the thing is you can integrate with CRM with books. So upon close one, maybe you want it to automatically send out and trigger a DocuSign. They have Zoho sign as well. Once that's signed, maybe you want Zoho Books to automatically trigger to send out an invoice for the amount in that contract. So, I mean, it all starts with sales, but depending on what you're using, it can go far beyond. That's why I say we do kind of general business consulting as well, not just CRM.
Yeah, I know it's hard to get specific because every business is different. Like it's kind of like every business is kind of the same, but there's nuances that make them feel different. And like if I looked at a construction CRM, I could probably use it, but it's not going to, relate to my marketing agency, right? So yeah, I feel like everybody I've talked to that has a CRM, it is a mess. It is out of date. It is not used correctly, or some people do use it, some people don't use it. And I think the biggest problem you have with that is the adoption side of this is actually what we use, and this is what everybody uses, and this is how we use it. Would you agree with that? That's kind of my thought.
Yep, and that's another tough part too with like some of larger firms, but the handoff and training is huge. And then also continued maintenance or, when they want to implement new features, having somebody to reach out to make sure you're abiding by best practices. Somebody might retrofit the deals module for a completely different purpose, and then when they actually go to use the deals, because maybe they're mostly referral business, all the out of the box reports are now kind of broken because they're using it for another purpose because it seemed to fit the mold of what they wanted to kind of try and get done. But yeah, no, an implementation, like getting value out of it completely has to do with user adoption. And a good rule of thumb is if it takes more than 3 clicks to perform any single action, then people are not going to use it because it's easier to just do it in the first place. So usually the 3-click rule is your best bet.
Now, do you actually do the training to help with the adoption? Because I know I've seen this many times. I know you've seen it where, Paul, we'll call him Paul, is like, I'm just going to use my spreadsheet. And, it's like, and it could be the best system ever, but they don't understand it. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of times this has gone into by like the person in leadership saying, here's the new system team, now use it, versus hey, what do you guys think? What would be good for you? What would make this work better? And so it's kind of given to people as, here's the thing, this is what we thought would be the best, but you don't really get that input from the foot soldiers. Do you guys address that, or is that just like a tough, because also you don't want the foot soldier saying, hey, I want this thing and this thing. It's like, well, maybe you do, but that's not smart. How do you deal with that?
So that you hit the nail on the head. So part of that is we do have a 4-meeting discovery. So it'd be anywhere from 1 to 4 meetings. And the purpose of that is usually just with the primary stakeholder. And it's just to get a general idea of what they use now, what it looks like, kind of map that over to an initial implementation. And so we can get like an actual budget, an idea of budget. We do min and max quote. From there, though, there's an actual discovery phase within the project itself. And those are like stakeholder meetings, like workshops. We'll ask, okay, who is the sales manager who probably worked his way through sales into that position? I don't want the sales director. I want your sales manager. Who in finance, who's your accountant, who's working there every day, if we're doing like Zoho Books along with CRM. And you want to have those workshops. And I can't speak for other firms, but we like to make sure that we know what their processes are now so that we can either train them on what they should be doing, or it all kind of depends. But some people aren't willing to budge. We can recreate their processes, whether or not we think it could be done better. But you do kind of gotta, before you start implementing, we kind of like create a proposal of how we think it should be done, and then we got to kind of cater that to meet in the middle somewhere. So
that's how in my business I've always kind of told my team, like, people don't buy what they don't want. And that seems very rudimentary, but like, you think this is what you should want.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I don't want it. But it's like, no, you should want this though.
Why?
Yeah. And it's kind of like, so you as the expert have to come in and say, like, here's what I would recommend. This is what I know would work, and I know better than you. You don't say that, but that's the truth. Like, I know better than you. Yep. This is what I do all day. And then what I've always said in my business is, we'll do one pushback. They'll say, hey, I want it to do this. You say, well, here's what I would suggest and why. And if they're still like, no, I want to do this thing, then it's like, okay, we'll do that thing. You might document that they want that thing, but it's not, it's a losing battle when you're just like, no, the thing you want is this.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
So that might be harder with marketing, but honestly, it makes it a bit easier where you have multiple stakeholders because it's like playing chess. If it's the executive, you say, well, this is why, and you can explain. And one thing that I kind of learned from Gene was you're not selling the product, you're selling the outcome. So you can tell the executive, your primary stakeholder, whether it's sales director, and you say, this is why they should do it this way, and this is what the outcome's going to be, and they're going to see a big number get bigger, and they're going to be happy. Yep. The workers, you kind of meet in the middle, and you got to figure out, like, well, that's realistically not going to work, and then you got to, same thing. You kind of spin it so that the director kind of understands, it makes sense, and they see, oh, well, this will work better. And then if it's something that, unfortunately, maybe the employees, the day-to-day, boots on the ground, if you get the director on board, then the employees are going to have to follow. So it's kind of like playing chess and getting everybody to meet in the middle, which can be a battle sometimes. But
yeah, and I think that's an important leadership lesson overall. And there's so many. I've got another client of mine that's a manufacturing consultant, and they do a lot of implementations with different things at these plants. and we're talking massive plants, brands that you probably have you use every day, and they make this mistake constantly of, hey, boots on the ground, here's the thing you're doing now, and they never bring them into the conversation. And it's kind of like, you can have the mindset, and sometimes you need to, I think, you can have the mindset of like, hey, do this or we'll find somebody that will. And that's, again, at the end of the day, you do have to have that at some point with some people. But the better version of that is, hey, let's get your feedback. How does this affect you? Like, because it's not like they're, empty heads, doing a process. They probably know way more than the person that's actually writing the check for you. And now on the flip side, you got to take some of that stuff with a grain of salt and try to give them a win, listen to the feedback, listen to the good feedback, implement it. But yeah, sometimes it's unrealistic or silly, but if they don't feel heard, they're immediately going to put a wall up, right?
110%. And another thing too, so like where that transitions, like even with like us, is also, I see a lot of implementations fail. And I mean, from the consultant perspective, because you don't factor into the budget and what you're doing, it's a hypercare and support, like crossover cutoff support. And the thing is, like, there may be things that seem phenomenal on paper, but when it comes down to doing it on a day-to-day basis, it just doesn't work in practice. And that's something that I see a lot of like consulting firms like eating overhead, because now they're having to fix things. They've met their max budget. They've got to make sure this works guaranteed, So that is something.
Oh, 100%. And it's frustrating to the end user because like they don't see it as complicated as it is. Like, it's just, you're going to implement Zoho. Okay, do it. It's like, that, like, within that, there are literally, 2,000 decisions and things that can or are made. And some of that stuff, you don't, like, we used to launch websites and in my previous business, and I would always tell people, and we build it into the budget of, like, we're going to launch the website, and then we've got 3 more months of work. And because we're going to put that out there, and then we're going to see, like, nobody goes to this page or nobody does this thing. And until you get, 1,000 people using something, they're going to find and show us information that the 3 of us couldn't get, right?
Yep. No, yeah, that's fine. Like, another thing, too, that I find is tough. So, for example, struggle is with implementation. There's a lot of times going to be a profit margin on it. Like, even if you go over the max budget hours, there's still a margin there. One thing that I'm struggling with, so, is we want to build a service package for, say, monthly recurring, like, and it's just stable. It's going from being able to service everyone, because even if it's not perfect or, project doesn't come out perfect, even if the client is tough to work with, whatever it is, you're still going to have some form of margin on that. Monthly recurring, though, the hard part, and I think one thing that a lot of consultants, business owners, they have a problem doing is walking away from a client or saying no and just saying, like, this isn't right. I have somebody I can refer you to. And I think that's going to be the biggest struggle with a monthly recurring model if we move to something like that, is only trying to pursue that type of service delivery for the right clients, which is a tough one.
Yeah, it's tough because I find this too in some of the stuff that we do, where it's like you're absolutely more work to be done, and it's not something that you just deliver and then it's done. It is an ongoing thing. And the problem is a lot of businesses look at that and they think, okay, I don't want to pay for this, to fix this or adjust this. And what ends up happening realistically is they end up doing it in-house and still paying for it, but paying a lot more for it. And it's not even right. And so it's like trying to not convince, but like give that value and show that value. But there's just so many times where people are thinking, oh, we'll just do it in-house. That way it's free. It's like, no, it's not free.
Yeah. And no, another 110%. And then on your internal side too, how do you determine, say you have 300 retainer clients, how do you determine which of those clients are more work than they're worth, and which of them are more work because the team that you have assigned to them, you need a burn rate, churn rate report, And then you got to segment and find out, we do this many, they do like A+ content, like 10 A+ content, maybe 17 product images, reviews, descriptions and stuff. How many of those clients are you delivering 17? So they're not asking for more than they're getting, but how many of those clients are asking for revisions over and over again for each of those 17?
Yeah.
So clearly needs to be a difference in their retainer needs to go up versus a team that there's revisions that are truly need to be revised because they just did it wrong.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother layer of visibility.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that is the struggle. I feel that in my business a lot of times where it's like, well, I have a set retainer and this person just approves everything. It all goes through. They trust us. And this person, it's like anything delivered is going to be, meticulously looked at or changed for no reason. And it's like, it's hard to go to that person and say, well, hey, because you're picky, you're going to pay more. But it is realistic.
It's true. I mean,
yeah.
But at the same time, you can't just be like, it's because you're a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But, you could, but I don't know if they'll sign again next month.
Yeah. Well, that's where you just look in your business and you just say, we're just going to have really good clients. All the really good clients will keep. Then you go out of business, but, that's another problem.
Yep. And then it's signals and knowing ahead of time before they sign finding those yellow flags before they become red flags.
Yeah, exactly.
Another big one.
So in all this, and I really appreciate this discussion, but in all this, what, for you personally, what kind of businesses are exciting to really dig into? Where do you find, man, this is going to be a good project for us?
Yeah, honestly, it's across the board. And again, it comes down to a client. I know once I sit with them, this person has some idea, they're involved, they know what's happening between sprint reviews, it's an involved client, and then you have clients that everything goes over their head, or they don't even have to be tech savvy, they just need to be invested in what's going on, I found. And honestly, it's not any specific industry or type of client, it's just literally from a client to client, person to person kind of basis. But
gotcha.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, no, well, you know your stuff, and it sounds like you guys are doing good stuff over there. But so, we could talk about this for. I feel like the time's flown by. We can talk about this for the rest of the day. But if people are interested in this, you pique their curiosity, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, if it's business related, my company email is just sam@marksgroup.net, or if you want to check out Marks Group, that's marksgroup.net. And then we also have webinars too, so if you want to check out anything new, cool. If you go to marksgroup.net/events, that's where all the registrations for the webinars are and stuff. So
cool. Well, Sam, it's been a good conversation. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course. You as well. Appreciate it.